Hello and welcome to the Semester 1 Final Exam Review. I'm just going to go over these problems, just give you some pointers to let you know what to do. Remember, there is an answer key, so I most likely won't solve every problem, but I'll start it off. In numbers 1, 2, and 3, remember that when you're using the distributive property, that's because you see these like this, you need to actually distribute. So for number 1, I would see negative 30. Let me erase the, there we go. Negative 30 plus, nope, there we go, minus 24x equals 126. You then continue to go through and add everything that you need to add. I'm just getting my answer key for you. There we go. And then you continue to solve for x. I believe x should be negative 6.5, and the answer key is incorrect there. In numbers 4 through 5, remember you're using their systems of equations. So in number 4, we're going to use substitution, and we're going to substitute that whole thing in. So it will be negative 12x plus 3 parentheses 4x plus 5 equals negative 4. This ends up being a situation with no solution because, as you see, you distribute through. You get negative 12x plus 5 equals negative 4. These cancel, and negative 5 cannot equal negative 4. If you did get an answer for x, though, you would use that to solve for y. Likewise, in number 5, if we look at that, they're both solved for y, so we can set them equal to each other and solve for x. We get that x is negative 3. So then you can take that and substitute it into the equation. I just used the first one, so I do negative 3 times negative 3 minus 16, and I get y is negative 7. These are some algebra review problems, so it's not too terribly hard necessarily, but we just haven't done these for a long time. Number 6 and 7 are talking about function notation. Remember, when it is inside the parentheses, for number 6, we do parentheses negative 4 parentheses squared plus 2, and we solve it for x. Remember, when I square a negative, it turns to a positive, and 16 plus 2, I get 18. On the other side, when it's p of x equals that, I do something different, and I set negative 147 equal to negative x squared minus 3. I'm going to add 3, and I get negative 144 equals negative x squared. I divide by the negative, so then I get x squared equals 144. I take the square root. There are always two answers. So I get x equals 12 and negative 12. So these are just some great review problems. I'm going to continue going onwards. Okay, the next one's talking about domain and range. What I can really stress for you is if you ever see something that looks like this, where I have an arrow and an open circle, maybe I'm going to have a dot. I'm going to erase that here. Remember, that's giving you a specific range of something. And remember that when it's an open circle, it's a less than or a greater than. And when it's a closed circle, it looks like this. That being said, let's talk about how this is going to work here. This arrow is going in both directions, and domain and range has to stand for situations that describe the values. So for x, the domain, it's going in both directions. I would do negative infinity is less than x, which is less than infinity. Likewise, y would be the same. In number 9, it's talking about a sleeping parabola. Remember, this is not a function because it doesn't pass the vertical line test. Okay? The vertical line test, remember, can something, vertical line, if it intersects it more than one time, it's not a function. As far as the domain, the x values have a limit, right? Right here. X must be greater than or equal to 0. Y can be anything. So if this is on your final, remember that what it will have is a multiple choice answers. So that's great. You can match it up. Definitely, I would put down on my cheat sheet this stuff about open and closed circles. Number 10 and 11 talk about the quadratic formula. Here's what I can say about that. At this point in time, I really hope you remember how to do this. And what I'm going to say is, don't forget to plug them in. It's going to be A, B, and C, negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 13 over 2 times 3. And we keep continuing on with this problem. We do the stuff in the square root first, and from there we go, and then we do negative 10 plus our answer and divide by 6, and negative 10 minus our answer and divide by 6. Remember to do that in separate steps. Let's talk about factoring, though. Don't forget factoring. I'm going to actually do number 12 down here so I have room with the box and the diamond. Remember that the first term, that n squared, goes here in the upper left. The 10 goes in the bottom right. We multiply them. We get 10n squared, 7n. We're trying to find two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. That's 2 and 5. And then I just fill in my boxes. Here's where people forget. Don't forget to actually solve for n, or x if that's what it is, and set each part equal to 0. So then n would be negative 2 here, and n would be negative 5. Let me erase this though, so I can do the next problem. Which asks you to solve for y. Remember, we want to get y by itself. We're going to distribute first, so it's 21y plus 21 equals 105 plus x. I'm going to subtract 21. I get 21y equals 84 plus x, and then I'm going to divide everything by 21. And that's y equals 4 plus x over 21. Okay, this one I think people really struggle with, and I just would suggest that you do it in steps. So first off, I'm going to take this 4's right here, and I'm going to multiply them. Because remember, when we're raising a power to a power. So I get m squared times n to the 5th times m to the 16. Remember, if I raise a negative to an even power, it goes away. And then on the bottom, I have negative m to the 4th. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to put them together by adding the like ones. So 2 and 16 is 18. And then I can still simplify, and I'm going to do 18 minus 4, which is 14. And there's still a negative there, n to the 5th. Here's the thing. If your answer's not there on the multiple choice, then you've obviously done something wrong. But really, I would just say you want to make sure that you don't have any division of like ones. So I shouldn't have an m over an m. I just want to get it as simple as possible. Let's talk about these problems down here. The solving ones, remember with square root or cube root, we always want to isolate first. So that means we have to add or subtract, multiply or divide, and then we get rid of the square root by squaring. If it was a cube root, we'd cube it. So negative 6 minus n equals 1. I'm going to add 6, and I have negative n equals 7, and I'm going to divide by negative 1, and n is negative 7. So remember, just if you want to think of it as steps, isolate, so add or subtract, then multiply or divide if there's a number in front of it, then square or cube, then solve. Okay, let's talk about these fractions. How do we clear fractions? Remember on this one, the first fraction I see is 3. So I'm going to multiply everything times 3. and that cancels on all. So now I have 4 minus n plus 4 over n equals 4n minus 3 over n. So now I'm going to multiply everything by n. These cancel, these, and that stays there. So I get 4n minus n plus 4 equals 4n minus 3. I'm going to combine like terms, so it's 3n plus 4 equals 4n minus 3. Add 3 to both sides, subtract 3n, and n is 7. Let's look at 21 and 22. Don't forget, if you have a third root, it's the same as saying a cube root. So to get rid of it, I cube both sides. So I get x equals 27. Likewise, if I have a squared, I take the square root. X should be 8 and negative 8. Don't forget that. 22 and 23 are perfect examples of isolations. The first thing we want to do for this one is subtract or divide by negative 7. And then remember, when we're doing absolute value, we're going to make it 2. So we have absolute value a minus 4, absolute value equals 5. And then we're going to make it 2 answers. A minus 4 equals 5, and a minus 4 equals negative 5. I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I get a equals 9. This one I'm going to add 4, and I get, or subtract 4, excuse me. No, add 4. And I get a equals negative 1. The other side I'm going to subtract 3 in number 23, and then I get 6 plus r equals 4, and 6 plus r equals negative 4. If I subtract 6 from both sides, this r is negative 2, and this r is negative 10. Okay, as far as these expand and simplify problems go, don't forget that this means 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 4. Likewise, this means x minus 5 times x minus 5. Okay, then I'm just going to distribute. So it's 4x squared plus 8x plus 8x plus 16. Don't forget, I will be writing it fully as 4x squared plus 16x plus 16. Okay, so this next one talks about finding, changing it from standard form to graphing vertex form, and that's when we complete the square. So the first thing we need to do is take our middle b term, and we're going to divide it by 2, and we get 3, and then we're going to square it, and that's 9. Then we're going to do x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus 27 minus 9. I'm going to erase this and do the vertex down here. Then I'm going to have this 3 parts right here. They are a perfect square, and so I can rewrite that as x plus 3. That's the same 3 from here. And how do I know that? Because if I was to factor that with the box and the diamond, I would get that same answer. Negative 27 minus 9 is negative 36. And then if I ask you, don't forget that squared, to find the vertex, well, this is my h, the 3, and it's always the opposite, and negative 36 is my k. Okay, let's go back down here to reminding ourselves how we find these great things like locator points. Remember, locator points is just h, comma, k. So when it's x minus 9, it's actually positive 9. So it's going to be 9, comma, 2. This one says describe this graph as compared to y equals x squared. So what that means, just tell me. Well, the negative means it's a flip. And we're comparing it because that is its parent graph. The 0.5 means it's a compression. If that number was bigger than 1, it'd be a stretch. The x plus 5 means it goes left 5. And the minus 6 means it goes down 6. Let's describe this graph. Okay, well, this is a absolute value. The a value, and I'm getting this all from my parent equations. Remember, it's a and then some like x plus, x minus, and then plus k. The absolute value, it's a stretch because that a value is bigger than 1. so a stretch of 4. X minus 3, it always does the opposite. So in the last problem, when it said x plus 5, it was actually left 5. This problem is saying x minus 3, so it's right 3 and up 2. This one says find the stretch compression factor of a cubic function that is a starting point of -2, -4. So that's my h and my k. And another point of -4, -8. So that shouldn't say a starting point there. It should actually say that it has a locator point. Sorry. So, and this is my x and y. So I'm going to use y equals a, parentheses x minus h, cubed plus k. I'm going to plug in -8 for y. I don't know what a is. That's what I'm solving for. I'm going to plug in -4 for x minus -2 cubed, and then it says minus 4. I got all of those from those up there. Okay, so now I have -8 equals a. -4 minus -2 is -2 cubed minus 4. Then that's going to be -27. I'm going to add 4. That's -4 equals -27a, and I'll divide by -27. That decimal, 4 divided by 27, is your answer, 0.148. I have 0.5 on the answer key, which is incorrect because it's a cubic function. So make sure that we change that on there. So A should be 0.148. I'll make sure to let everybody in class know. Okay. Another problem, oh, I should say A equals positive. Let me just erase that. 0.148. Okay, another problem I want to show you is how do you find the x and y intercepts. Remember to find the x-intercepts, that means y equals 0. So I do 0 equals 0.25, parentheses x plus 4 squared minus 8. I'm going to add 8 to both sides, so then I'll get 8 equals 0.25, parentheses x plus 4 squared. I'm going to divide by 0.25. I get 32 equals x plus 4 squared. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And I get 5.66. So now I have 5.66 equals x plus 4. And I have negative 5.66 equals x plus 4. I subtract 4 from both sides. And then I get positive 1.66. Keep doing that, sorry. Okay, well, that's not working, so you're going to have to be okay with that. And the other one's going to be negative 9.66. Okay, I'm going to kind of section this. To find the x-intercept, or excuse me, to find the y-intercept, x is 0. So then I just put it into my calculator. So I do 0.25, parentheses 0 plus 4 squared minus 8, and I get negative 8. So remember that'd be 0, negative 8. Likewise, these would be comma 0. Okay, so these all ask you to find the graph of the equation of the graph. So all you're going to do, it's the same process each time. You're going to write down the parent function. So this is a square root. You're going to identify h and k. In this situation, your h and k is -3, -5. You're going to identify another point. I've most likely put the point on there. This one's negative, or it's positive 1, -4. I'm going to plug everything in. So I have -4 equals a square root. This is x and y. This is h and k. So it's 1 minus -3 minus 5. I finished solving for a. In this situation, we have that a is equal to 0.5 once I do it all out. And then I write the original equation, which is y equals 0.5 square root x plus 3 minus 5. Okay? Remember, I always plug in these ones again, the a, the h, and the k. Next one is a parabola. So I would do y equals, oops, let me go back here, parentheses a, parentheses x minus h squared plus k. Your h and your k, your locator point is negative 3, 4. Your other point, let's just use this one I gave you, it's negative 2, 3, so that's x and y. You substitute it in, so it's 3 equals a parentheses negative 3 minus negative 2 squared plus 4. I get that my a value is a negative 1, and then I rewrite it. Y equals negative 1, parentheses x plus 2 plus 4. Wow, I have, no, see what I did here? Definitely did something wrong. I plugged these in the wrong spots. So it should have been negative 2 minus negative 3. Thus, this will be different right here. And it'll be x plus 3 squared plus 4. Next one is a cubic. So it's y equals a parentheses x minus h cubed plus k. So my h and my k is 5, negative 1. My other point, let's just use 6, 0 for your x and your y. And then I plug everything in. I get 0 equals a parentheses 6 minus 5 cubed plus k. And I get y equal, or I get a is just 1. So my actual equation is y equals 1 parentheses x minus 5 cubed, and I shouldn't have put k here. I should have put plus 0. No. Minus 1. So this will be minus 1. Okay, let's go on to the next one. It's absolute value. So we're going to write that out. Y equals a, absolute value, x minus h, absolute value plus k. And what do I have here? I have my h and my k is negative 4, negative 3. And I have another point at negative 3, negative 1. That's my x and my y. So I have negative 1 equals a, absolute value, negative 3, minus negative 4, absolute value, minus 3. I solve this and I get that a is 2. And then I'm going to write it out. Y equals 2, absolute value, x plus 4, absolute value, minus 3. The last one is a circle, which I do think is a little bit easier to find. You just got to substitute it in. It's x minus, what's this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. So it's x minus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals r squared. The radius is 3, and 3 squared is 9. Remember, the center of the circle is always your h and your k. Okay, this is what we were just working on, the logs and stuff. So I'm only going to do just one. Remember to change it from log to exponential. I put the 11 over, the 0 up, and it's 1 equals 11 to the first. Likewise, if I want to change this from exponential to log, 2 comes down, the 16 goes over, and it's 2 equals log 16, 256. Okay, this one's asking you to find the inverse of the function and then graph it. So if I'm gonna graph the cube root minus 1, let me get a paper here. Okay, so that one, if I put that into my calculator, I would have a point at, on your answer key, I did this backwards, so it should be f of x and f negative 1. So I have to do that. Okay, so the actual function is at negative 1 here, and then it went down here. And I'm just getting this from my calculator. So this is your f of x. And then if I want to find the inverse, I first make it y equals the cube root of n, and I'm actually going to change that to x. It's fine, it doesn't really change your answer. And then I'm going to switch my x to my y. And then I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to add 1. So I get x plus 1 equals the cube root of y. I'm going to cube both sides. And I get x plus 1 cubed equals y. That's my inverse. And so that one is going to go right here. Getting this just from my calculator, although you can graph these by hand because you could just look at the locator points. I'm guessing most people will use their calculator. This is an interesting one on number 35, is the inverse is the same as the function. Sometimes that happens. It's negative x minus 4, and so there's just the same line. I won't have something like that in your test, but it could happen. As you go down further, it asks you to solve and find the inverse of each of these. Remember that literally is just changing it to y equals. Switching your x and your y. And then solving for y. So I'm going to add 3. X plus 3 equals 2y squared. I'm going to divide by 2. And I have x plus 3 divided by 2 equals y squared, and I'm going to take the square root of it, and it's plus or minus of that. Let's move on here to find the inverse of a table. Remember, you just need to take your x and y values and switch them. So if it's negative 2, 6, it needs to become 6, negative 2. This would become negative 3, 4, and this would become 8, 1. And these are the answer keys. So I did change a couple of these. Remember, this x equals negative 5 is actually negative 6.5. I had another one I changed on here. 31 should be 0.148. And then they'll correct on these inverses. This should actually be your f of x. And this should actually be your f negative 1 of x, which means the inverse. So that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else to remind you to do. Just look at your cheat sheet, add everything on there, and send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.